La Masia has been a talking point in the last year because of a certain someone. Lamine Yamal and FC Barcelona are killing it so far this season, but it wasn't this straightforward just a few years ago. Barca were struggling sporting wise and most definitely financially. By the end of the Messi era in FC Barcelona, the La Masia Academy was rarely counted on. Talent would walk out on Barcelona for lack of opportunities. As they went, Barcelona seemed to regress even more. But as soon as changes were made and youth players were counted upon in this dark time, progression followed suit. It ultimately begs a question: how does Barcelona create such great talent? In this video, we will go over the 5-step process FC Barcelona followed to produce generational talent. Especially in this economic state that FC Barcelona are in, they need some of the best, if not the best talents in the world coming through the ranks. And in order to acquire that talent, it comes with a price. Which brings me into part 1, investment. FC Barcelona is one of the biggest clubs in the world. This, however, does not change the fact that FC Barcelona had a spending problem. Previous Barca president Josep Bartomeu had almost self-sabotaged the club. He had wanted to replicate the success he had in his very first season when Barca won the treble, but that fueled awful financial and sporting decisions to go through, spending big on players that wouldn't fulfill their potential and spending on players that did not fit the team, causing a shift in focus from producing great homegrown players back then to big name transfers. This would all lead to a debt of over 1 billion euros. And when it came time for new Barca president Joan Laporta to come in, he understood in order to get the club where it needed to be, they had to trust the La Masia players like they once did in their golden age, which is something Bartomeu and company would neglect during his tenure. Laporta knew that he had to have La Masia be the backbone of the club, but this would not be an overnight success. This needed time. More and more players were added to first team practices, invited to preseason with the team, and maybe even given a chance off the bench in a competitive match. And well, before you knew it, La Masia players were given their chance. Under Xavi Hernandez as coach, 15 La Masia players were given first team minutes. This trust in the youngsters gives them all the confidence in the world to do what they do best. Being that they're young and inexperienced, their value naturally goes up as they play too, and even more so when they perform well. And unlike most clubs, like Chelsea for example, youth players are offered a different promise. Chelsea have sold several of their homegrown talent because to them the players are pure profit and help supply the ridiculous spending in North London. FC Barcelona on the other hand are not going to get rid of their gems for nothing. They won't get rid of the ones with superstar potential because of a financial crisis, just how they rejected a 200 million euro bid on Lamine Yamal. FC Barcelona invested into the academy because to them that's what's worked so well in the past. They tried to steer away from it and they suffered their worst period ever. And during that time period, the team was missing something all of these La Masia players are taught in their youth: how to compete. This is why part 2, competitiveness, is important to how Barcelona creates all these generational talents. Competition in sports is normal, but even to these 5-year-olds in La Masia, your dream could vanish very quickly if you do not keep up with the pace. Only a few players in the hundreds get to take part in the La Masia Academy, with 83 inhabiting dorms, which means the process of getting in is a very hard, selective endeavor. This process is put in place only to allow the best talents into the program. No matter if you're an ultra-talented prospect or a hard-working prospect, you will learn how to compete in order to get somewhere in La Masia and FC Barcelona. Teaching these kids this will show how the top teams will treat them if they're not seeking to improve their game. Players like Lamine Yamal and Pau Cubarsí are examples of this. They have slotted right into the starting 11 as if they've been playing there for years. Cubarsí and Yamal also highlight a huge part of what makes La Masia so great at producing talent. The system in place is a linear one that allows you to climb up the ladder, but not restricted to the point where you can't skip some levels. Lamine Yamal, for example, instead of going from Barcelona's U19 team to the Barcelona B team, he went straight to the first team of FC Barcelona. Lamine at 15 was good enough to start training with the first team and earn some minutes within the team. Allowing for this clear path to the first team and trusting them to even start some games creates a great dynamic for the coaches and for the players themselves to find their footing in this big footballing landscape. Overall, the learnings these children experience in La Masia is like no other academy. And I only say this because there's one key difference that separates La Masia from other academies, and that is part 3. Culture. From top to bottom, FC Barcelona have instilled a dynamic that is felt around the world, and it's obvious the reason why when we dig a little deeper. La Masia is rooted in the fact that these youngsters will spend their childhood and teenage life together. They will eat, study, play, and compete amongst each other. All of the coaches from the lowest tier all the way to the first team are guided on how to teach these kids valuable life lessons through their everyday lives and the sport they love playing. But on top of all of that, the coaches are there to plant a football intelligence incomparable to any other system in the world of football. An identity, a style of play, and even a moral code. Whether you call it tiki-taka or whatever else, this is the goal of the coaches. They are there to allow for certain players, maybe just an individual, who will take what the coach is saying and base their entire footballing brain around it. And with that same footballing IQ, they study and master it before even getting anywhere near the first team. Again, players like Barca and Lamine Yamal are able to come up the ranks and look so comfortable because they have instilled with this identity at an early age. And even if you're not with La Masia from the start of your youth career, like Fermin Lopez for example, who joined Barca's youth system at 13 years old, you are still prioritizing giving that attention to detail when it comes to the Barca style. But there's an issue with this so-called Barca style or Barca way. That issue being that there is something even more important than culture to the reason why Barcelona is able to generate such amazing talent, which is part 4, situation. FC Barcelona have started the 2024-2025 season with flying colors, sitting on the top of the La Liga table, but the injury list keeps increasing, which has had many fans and viewers alike to worry about the Barcelona season up ahead. I mean, a lot of these injuries have carried over from Xavi's time at Barca, and this has allowed for one thing, however, the emergence of La Masia players to the first team. And while many think this is bad for Barca, instead it has worked in their favor. Many of these youngsters have been displaying great performances for Hansi Flick's team. This situation has made it so that many players like Marc Cacedos and Marc Bernal can shine in the first team, and the injuries aren't even the worst part about it. FC Barcelona are still recovering from their €1 billion debt. The signing of players has been difficult, which was the case for former La Masia player Dani Olmo for example, taking particularly long than expected to get registered. But in this case, the restriction on the budget for new players has again given the priority for many youth players to be called up to the first team. However, these La Masia players and youngsters brought up from Barca Athletic have one thing in common. FC Barcelona is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and many players in the past have not succeeded in the club. This pressure can overwhelm any player, but just how they've been taught to compete, the La Masia players at some point understand they need to do more in order to stand out and become that protagonist in the first team of FC Barcelona. These high standards for the individuals aren't necessarily the problem all the time. It's actually the outside criticism that affects them more. The media will track your every movement, judge every bad turn, and make you out to be a bad person. And on top of all of that, even if you are able to win over the fans and the critics, your next step is to not let comparisons to your future greats of your club or current rivals discourage your spirits. Many players crumble under the pressure, whether they're from La Masia or not. Bojan is a perfect example for this. An individual coming through the ranks right after the one and only Lionel Messi. The hype for Bojan was unprecedented, so much so that the reporters would look deep into Bojan and find out he was cousins with Messi. This would add fuel to the fire with the comparisons, and while having many great seasons with Barcelona, a few loans later would see him leave the club and never reach that potential put on him. This in the end allows for only the elite talent to pierce through. This criticism that players experience is unbearable, but similarly, the club is talked about negatively too. FC Barcelona have been criticized heavily on not adapting to the changes in which football is played today. Many critics believe Barca lost this when many of those stars from their previous generation left, and the club never really replaced them. Now under Hansi Flick, and most importantly with the help of many of these La Masia players and great additions, FC Barcelona can compete like before. But remember, these are just kids at the end of the day. And no matter the age, your environment is crucial, and for the La Masia players, that holds very true. If they aren't comfortable with their surroundings, then players like Lamine Yamal will never develop to be truly gifted talents. And like Yamal's amazing footballing ability, YouTube believes you'll love this amazing video as well.